Alex, can I call you Alex?
Yeah, sure. Can I call you Tim?
Of course.
I was going for
Of
Mr.
course.
Staffel, but then I thought maybe I should call you
Yeah.
Tim.
It has happened in the past, but it's entirely unnecessary.
Well, I found The Sinner to be particularly catchy.
Oh,
I
that's great.
found myself walking down the street and humming, "Take me through until that terminal gate." I thought that's a great song. It stayed in my head.
Uh, Thank you, very kind. The blind out politician with his celebrated smile, a piano keyboard ivory with each key neatly filed. See what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I'm going over the top here
Oh, do
slightly.
that, do that. Please sing the whole song if you like.
This particular album represents a paradigm shift from my previous material. I don't think necessarily in the quality of the quality of the intent, should I say, but just in the sense that I somehow feel empowered to try to make it appear more serious. The two previous albums, Amigo and Too Late, they were done in a kind of I still like them, and I particularly like the songs still. I haven't, but they were recorded and produced in a somewhat parochial style, mainly due to the resources that I was able um, to muster to visualize them, to actually create them. The movie Bohemian Rhapsody, of course, has upped the ante a good deal, and of course, I now feel because of that, and because of that added profile, I'm allowed to stick my head above the parapet and not be accused of trying to capitalize on reflected glory, which of course it is always going to be, but it's a degree of increasing legitimacy if you see what I mean,
Mhm.
because of the movie.
Yeah, sure. I found the songs to be very catchy. I spoke to Kat as well. I found The Sinner to be particularly catchy.
Oh,
I
that's great.
found myself walking down the street and humming, "Take me through until that terminal gate." I thought that's a great song. It stayed in my head.
Uh, Thank you, very kind. I There's something going on, I think, under the surface there. That certainly the Sinner, which was not, I have to say, was not a it songwriting. Songwriting runs the spectrum. It exists within the spectrum, and I'm sure many songwriters will attest to this. The spectrum goes from difficult birthing problems to easy, instantaneous spontaneity,
Yes.
and uh, and and the Sinner was a bit more on the spontaneous side. It came together quite quickly and quite simply, and I think it was because the 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 main motif, which is four chords, which just go from the D to the B minor to the F sharp minor to the E minor, that was, although they're simple chords which have been used 100 times, a million times, I should say,
Yeah.
it just seemed to me that with the melody that was running through my head behind them or in front of them, that there was a uniqueness and originality about that I felt had legs, was capable of extension and development, and the song very much came out of that juxtaposition of chords and melody, which, as I say, I don't think is particularly. It's not a groundbreaking progression, but it seemed to me that it worked particularly well in that instance.
And I have the feeling, and correct me if I'm wrong, when it comes to the Sinner and maybe the Patch and any other way, the two other singles you've released so far, are they somewhat, at least to some extent, autobiographical?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
I mean, uh, I used to, I used to, oh, without without wishing to be disrespectful to any other songwriter in the world, I've always felt it somewhat awkward to consider the notion um, of personal relationship songwriting, lyrics that are based on directly based on personal relationships, because because well, one thing is that maybe if you directly refer to people, they might take offense, and so you can't risk. So you have to kind of, if you're going to do a personal relationship song, you have to do it with um, representational figures in terms of the way you populate your song, the characters that you populate your song with can't be recognizable. You can only write your songs using the principles, not the direct. And so I used to shy away from personal songs like that. And the first two albums are kind of, well, there are exceptions, I appreciate, but the first two albums are kind of more there's more that I've employed abstract narratives more than songs that are about directly related experience. I mean, as I say, there are exceptions, and but actually, it's a process that I've gradually adopted during the course of. And there, in fact, on this new album, on Wayward Child, there are one or two songs that are directly personal. But in all cases, there has been an element of autobiographical. How can I put it? I've just been considering things that occur to me in terms of my experience in life. I mean, particularly, you mentioned Brexit and COVID. We're all party to a common experience, and we're all, and certainly here in Europe, and I mean, and well, everywhere, the man on the street, i.e., myself, uh, it observes many absurdities perpetrated on our lives by people in positions of power, by factions, by all sorts of third parties, and you can't help but, and that's so that what I do is I just tend to write songs which make reference to those things. I mean, even going back to the days of Morgan, for instance, the lyrics in Morgan. I mean, they could, people have accused me of being pretentious in the days of Morgan, and actually I own up to that. But what is not generally remembered is that prog rock was a genre all in its own, and it had rules for lyrics, rules for rhythm, rules for soloing, rules for all sorts of things which were quite unique. And I felt very privileged in Morgan to be given the job of librettist. Effectively, it was more than just a lyric writer; it was a librettist, because Morgan wrote the music. I wrote these fairly long, and they had to be coherent. There had to be a coherence, and so, and that is that, and I still do that, but it's a lot simpler now. And your very kind words about the Sinner mean that to a certain extent I've succeeded in creating earworms with significance, with lyrical significance. And I think if that's worked, then I have achieved my goal, my principal goal.
I think it definitely worked. Actually, listening to Morgan, I was thinking about how hard it must have been for you to write lyrics to odd time signatures that change all the time.
exactly. Do you know? I think that was possibly the best training ground that I could ever have had for writing lyrics. And the reason why is that if I listen nowadays, and it's very true of then, even more so, if I create a melodic juxtaposition of chord progression and melody, I can listen to the way it's accented, and in my view, the way to write lyrics is to choose a combination of words that duplicate that accentuation. As you quoted, preacher told me I should trust in faith. Take me through until that terminal gate. Those words, terminal gate. The accent of the words mirrors the accent in the melody, and that's what I'm looking for all the time. Because otherwise, lyrics can sound awkward, and the rhyme doesn't fit properly. And in fact, you can sometimes substitute etymological rhyme for accent rhyme, if you get the distinction. And Morgan was the most incredible the University of Lyric Writing being in Morgan. It was amazing because exactly as you say, there were some off the wall time signatures and accents that I had to match up with lyrical content. The blind out politician with his celebrated smile, a piano keyboard ivory with each key neatly filed. See what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going over the top here.
Oh, do that. Please sing the whole song if you like.
I probably could remember the lyric, but I haven't really, from that day to this, been in a situation where it was possible. But of course, things do stick, and if there's one thing that I'm amazed at, is that my memory for melody and lyrics far surpasses my memory for abstraction and information, or straight information. So who knows? Maybe in fact, there's a song on the first Morgan album on Nova Solis, which is called Alone, and it's one of my first guitar-based songs. And I was yesterday thinking, if I were to feature that in a acoustic gig of mine, a solo gig of mine, which I've never done, could I remember the lyrics? And I was amazed to discover I could remember every lyric. So I probably will be revisiting that song at some point in the near future, because I've got a few solo gigs lined up, and I'll go from the beginning to the end.
Samarkand the Golden, I like that from the first record, and I was gonna ask you about your future plans, about maybe some touring, or local touring in England, maybe promote the record. Spain, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, as in so many cases, it's about resources.
Right.
In the UK, you've probably seen the album How High, which is on my Spotify.
Yes.
I collaborate with one of my old friends from school, from the same school that Brian was at, Paul Stewart.
Yes.
We have a small band that does local tours around London and the South Coast. And it's although we're both writers, although we do feature our own material, we also do, because there's a very heavy traditional blues scene in Britain. We have to feature we feature our own arrangements of traditional blues tunes as well. Now, the trouble is, I have to keep it separate from my songwriting persona, my if you like post-Queen persona, because I'm not doing this. I'm not doing the same tunes. I'm accompanying my music as a solo performer with a certain degree of anecdotal chat about what it was like in the old days, because I find that people expect it. People like to talk about the derivation, the derivation of where I come from. So I have to keep those two things separate. But I am starting to do solo gigs now, and that just means myself and my guitar, just doing my tunes as an acoustic. Now, we talked about an album launch in Barcelona, and I still might do that. But again, as I say, it's down to resources. The bottom line is, I would love to well, providing I'm physically capable, but I seem to be all right at the moment. For a 75-year-old,
If your knee doesn't give you any more trouble, right?
I got one metal knee,
yeah,
and I'm waiting for the second one. But I feel energized, and I feel as though it's possible. It's just a matter of sponsorship, I think, really, because I don't have the resources to fund a fully blown tour myself, but I would love to do it. You know.
Yeah. What about Barcelona? Why did you choose Barcelona to record the record?
Well, as you probably know, my son Andrew has always been my drummer.
Yeah.
And Andrew lives in Barcelona.
Okay.
He's lived in Barcelona for 15 years now, and and the reason is because he speaks absolutely fluent Spanish, and he just feels comfortable in Barcelona. And when the pandemic what happened during the pandemic was that because we were all bored out of our tiny minds, I decided to demo the album. I already had most of the songs, and Andrew and I had talked about recording a third album, but we were going to record it in the UK. We were going to do what we did before. Andrew was going to come over here. We were going to probably use the same producer. We probably would have used different players, but we would have done it in the same way. And the pandemic changed the whole paradigm, really. I completed the dozen songs on Logic, and they weren't great. But I think they're probably good enough to somewhere down the line release the demos as remix them, get them. And what I did was I used the programmed drums on Logic, fleshed out the songs, sent the WAVs out to Andrew in Barcelona. He put live drums on them and ironed out all the kind of quantizing problems that the existing program drums had created, made them altogether more sensitive. He sent them back to me. I put some more things on them, some vocal harmonies on them, and we sent the whole lot. I mixed. I shouldn't be advertising this, but I'm not going to even say the name, but I subscribe to an online mastering service.
Okay.
So I mixed them as best as I could, got them mastered online, and sent the finalized. Well, I think I'd sent 320K MP3s out to Barcelona, and Andrew took them to the studio and said, "Look, can we do this?" And the studio were absolutely amazed. Well, they weren't amazed, but they really wanted to do it because they had the capability of working old school, which is not something they do.
Yeah.
And so when we went to Barcelona, they were absolutely pumped for it because they wanted the experience of recording a live band. I just thought that's what we would do. And we had it was a wonderful experience. We brought the recording desk into the studio. We took it out of the control room, brought it into the studio, had the engineer in the studio with us, had everybody with cans and direct DI'd with mics as well. And they just went through it. And Oscar, the producer, conducted the band from the rhythm guitar. And I just sat there observing and commenting. And each one did half a dozen or even 10 or even a dozen takes till they got a good one. Then the band left. I did a guide vocal to the best takes. And then we did rough mixes of everything. I tidied up the vocals where necessary. Then the singers came in. We did the harmonies. Then the horn section came in. We did the horn section. We mixed the lot, and that's the result. It was a terrific process. But what was so great about it was that I was a bit reluctant to. I've been used to kind of high energy vocals. Admittedly, it's dropped off really in with the way I've gone with my music. I left Smile. I was beginning to fall out of love with heavy rock. I moved into a much more relaxed form of playing, especially with a lot of improvisation, which is certainly what I do with my UK band is we improvise and all. We don't play the same tunes the same way night after night. But the producer for the album in Barcelona said, look, just sing more relaxed. And I was saying, well, are you sure? And he said, yeah, the voice is good. The voice can cut it. And so I did. And I think the result shows that there's a degree of sensitivity there that I might not otherwise have been able to expose if it hadn't been for the producer's encouragement.
Yeah, it's an album that sounds great. As a drummer myself, we were doing this project and we were like showing some reference mixes, what do you want it to sound like? And I actually showed the center to our mixing guy. I said, wow, this sounds so warm, and so natural. The drums sound so warm and full, and the vocals and everything. And I think it's a great sounding album.
Thank you. That's wonderful to say that. I was particularly concerned with the drums myself, and I think we've achieved what I was hoping for, because there's a lot of contemporary soul that I listen to, where I find the drums are incredibly dead. Yeah. And I think to myself, why did you do that? Why did you make the drums so dead like that? They need life. Knock them into the background. Put some reverb, put a little bit of reverb on them. Give them some life. Take the blankets out of the bass drum. And I really like the drum sound on Wayward Child. I really do.
It's a great sound. And looking back at your musical career, you've been pretty eclectic. So you've went from the, heavy metal, hard rock, blues style of Smile to progressive rock in about 3 years.
Yep.
And when we talked in 2021, you mentioned Weather Report and Chick Corea as projects that influenced you when you went to America in the 70s. And now you're doing this, which still sounds like you, but then it also sounds a bit like maybe Steely Dan, or it's like smooth and soul. And so you look like a musician. You sound like a musician that's just trying to experiment with many, many styles. You don't stay in one place.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, what you see, what you hear, is just an eclectic mix of all of the things that I've enjoyed. I think the thing is, it's not that we tried deliberately to emulate any of that stuff. it's just something that occurs on a visceral level. You know, I mean, sure, much like you, I would have taken an album to a producer and said, look, listen to this. Can we get this kind of sound? So in terms of pure sonic quality, there's that. But but someone said to me the other day, oh God, yeah, that progression sounds just like a Steely Dan progression. And my response to that is, oh, does it? Tell me which one. And the response is, well, actually, I can't tell you which one, but it just has an essence of that Steely Dan, those Steely Dan progressions about it. And I'm flattered by that, because, you know, I wasn't an early Steely Dan fan. I came across, I came to realize how great Donald Fagen and Walter Becker were when I was working in Lisbon in about 1998. It's a funny story. I was working on Expo 98, and I was driving around Lisbon, and I hired a Renault Clio, and I was driving around Lisbon, and I had no music to listen to, and it was the days of cassettes. So I went into this record shop, and there was nothing that I really recognized, except there were 3 albums that I recognized. One was Paco de Lucia, wonderful guitar player. One was a country singer, American country singer called Patty Loveless, great country artist. And the third one was the Best of Steely Dan Remastered. So I bought these 3, and I thought, well, they'll do for the time being until I can get some cassettes sent out from the UK. But within a week, Steely Dan Remastered was permanently in the cassette player, and I just got introduced on a deep level to songs that I had only vaguely was only vaguely aware of, but I started to see how they were constructed and how beautifully the parts fitted together, and so really, you know, 30 years after Smile, I discovered Steely Dan, effectively. God, how old was I? 98. I was 50, for God's sake. It took me till I was 50 before I really discovered that I liked Steely Dan. Yeah, amazing.
Tim, I don't want to keep you much longer. This meeting will probably end in 10 minutes because I don't have the full Zoom version. So it's like the 40-minute thing.
Okay.
And I just wanted to, because I spoke to Kat and I said 10 minutes and we're like 30 minutes and I don't want to.
Oh, I hope that's all right with you. I mean, I do have a gig tonight, so I have to get ready. But I've enjoyed talking, and I hope I haven't been chatting too much.
No, it's great that you've talked so much and you've like predicted some of my questions. I was just, you know, I think, of course, a lot of people know you because of Queen and Smile and your legacy with that. Have you ever found it hard to separate yourself from that, or was it something you didn't even consider? You're not interested in separating yourself from, you know, Queen?
That's probably a you know, that's a really significant question. On the face of it, I initially considered this is a hindrance. This is going to be a hindrance because I'm not playing the same kind of music. I'm not a theatrical performer like Freddie and Queen are. If anything, I'm a backroom musician, or I'm just a songwriter. I'm just a working songwriter. And although I appreciated that the connection would be useful for my marketing profile, I was always a little bit concerned, because certainly where fans are concerned, the questions seem to repeat themselves over and over again, and they're mostly related to what it was like in the old days. And of course, that to me that's a bit of a hindrance because you know, deep down, a little part of me says, yes, 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 I know that, but can we get on to my stuff? You know. However, having exposed a kind of slight impatience side, I have to say that the incidents of my inclusion into the movie humbled me a bit with that, in that respect, and I kind of developed more of a respect for fans now because effectively, whatever one says, it is reflected glory, and if my material is going to be of interest to anybody, if people are going to absorb my music, I mean, one of the greatest things that I would hope for is that somebody would come along and record one of my songs, but so far that hasn't happened. But to me, that's the absolute holy grail. But in spite of that, I think what's happened to me now with the whole Queen thing is that I feel a bit more honoured by it now than I used to, because I used to feel that it was a hindrance, and I now feel as though it's part of my DNA. So I'd better get used to it. You know, is that a decent response, do you think?
Yeah, obviously. I mean,
Yeah.
and if people, and then this is just my opinion, if I would not have been able to hear your music if I didn't know you from Queen.
Yes, of course.
It must have been hard for most people that listen to what you're putting out, which is great music, to have discovered you if it weren't for your involvement with Smile and Queen. So I think, in a way, as annoying as it must have been, maybe sometime people tell me, oh, how about playing with Brian and Roger at Royal Albert Hall in 1969, whatever.
Yes,
At
yeah.
the same time, it must be a blessing, because, you know,
Of course it is.
we get to
Yeah,
hear your music, and you're in the history books, which is, you
yeah,
know, not
yeah,
something that not a lot of people can say about themselves.
yeah. Well, it's true that, I mean, I heard the other day that there are 100,000 new songs uploaded to Spotify every single day,
Oh, that's
and
encouraging.
which is amazing, isn't it? And in fact, uh, um, uh, there are so many musicians and people trying to do this thing that I can only say to Brian and Roger and the rest of the guys and Jim Beach and everybody, thank you so much for leaving the door open.
Right. Yeah.
That's really what's happened. The door is open a bit, and I'm just getting my music through it.
Well, Tim, thank you very much for your time.
Alex, that was great. Thank you.
By the way, we share the same birthday, although I was born about 47 years after you, but, you know, it's still February
Excellent.
24th.
Excellent.
And so I think this record, and I'm being completely honest with you, is one of the most interesting records. I mean, just the three songs that three, right, showed four. Three songs that you've released so far are great songs, and I show them to people and they're like, whoa, that's great music. And so thank you for that. I can't wait to listen to, you know, the whole record and get a physical copy myself. And yeah, so thank you. We haven't had the time to talk about your other career, but anyway, thank you so much for.
Well, if you want to do it again, Alex, that I'm very happy to do that at some point, any time.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your time, and congratulations on your new record as well. And have fun tonight at the gig. And maybe next time I'll come to London. I'll come to one of your shows. Why not?
You'd be very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll send you, I'm through Cat probably, I'll send you the link and everything once this whole thing is broadcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I wish you a great day. Thank you.
You too. Thanks, Alex. Bye for
Bye
now.
bye. Bye, Tim.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.